Hi and welcome to the Geek Legion of Doom. This is a B-movie review and I'll be having a look at Sundown, the Vampire in Retreat, which is a bit of a strange choice of grammar, I have to say, but there you go. So this film is an action comedy horror movie about a town somewhere deep within the deserts in the US somewhere, which is actually a haven for vampires. But the vampires here have decided they don't want to be hunting humans or killing people anymore. So they're trying to live a life of peace now. The way they're doing it is there's a factory built in this town which is producing a synthetic replacement for blood. Although it doesn't taste very nice, and obviously the vampires still miss the taste of blood. However, they're trying to overcome the cravings and have this sort of synthetic stuff instead. However, there seems to be a problem with the plant, so they've actually called this family, who the father of which is the person who actually designed the original process, although he has no idea that they're actually vampires, and he sort of called the town to try and fix the problem with the supply issues. And him and his wife and his two young daughters travel to the town to sort out the problem. Unbeknownst to them, obviously it's a town full of vampires. Add to that, you've got a couple of other humans in the mix. You've got a couple of campers who are nearby who witness one of the vampires attacking one of their friends. And you've also got a descendant of the Helsing family who's tracking down after years of searching for the legendary vampires. And he's, of course, played by Campbell. So the central sort of plot of the story here is actually a civil war that's brewing between two factions of the vampires. The peaceful vampires led by David Carradine, and there's a subsection who are discontent and they don't want to be subservient to this fake blood and actually want to be hunting humans. And they've decided to almost stage a rebellion, and they've developed guns and wooden bullets to try and have a coup ultimately. Add to that, David, who is the father of this human family, has a bit of a love rival in the form of a guy called Shane, who was originally a colleague of his, who is now the most recent vampire in the town, who has a bit of a thing with his wife and may well be the father of one of his daughters. And of course, you put all these elements together, and it's obviously an explosive mix, and inevitably there's a civil war at the end of the movie, and obviously the forces of good versus the forces of evil. So this is actually quite a fun movie, although it's extremely silly and campy. It's got a great cast, as I've mentioned. You've got Campbell, David Carradine, and a lot of other character actors that you may have seen in plenty of other films and TV shows and things like that. It's quite a fun and original premise, I have to say. And it's probably a vampire scenario where you may not have seen too many times, and it's quite interesting watching these vampires trying to emulate trying to be human and disguise the fact that they're vampires in front of these humans that are coming into the town and things like that. It certainly isn't rolling around on the floor laughing, but it's amusing. I guess the main problem for me is, aside from its inherent silly and campiness, which isn't going to be for everyone's taste, is the main family. Who, although it is really an ensemble piece, to be fair, but the main character of this human family, the main guy, if you like, he's called David, who's the father of this family. His character's a little bit dull, and he has this rivalry with this guy called Shane, who is played by Maxwell Caulfield. And Shane is a far more interesting character actually, and they have some quite amusing exchanges and throwing insults at each other. But I was actually rooting for Shane because I liked his character a little bit more. I have to say, I did enjoy the climax of this film. There's obviously quite a big fight at the end where you have all the good vampires versus the bad vampires, and you pretty much everyone gets involved, including all these human characters. And you've got Campbell, descendant of Van Helsing, who seems rather superfluous, I have to say. I mean, you could have taken his character completely out of the story, and it would have been absolutely no difference to the plot whatsoever. He strikes up with this a bit of a romance with a vampire in the town and things like that. So there are some plots, and even the other human characters as well are completely again superfluous to any plot. So it's a bit of a strange that they're actually in there in the first place, to be honest. The humour isn't going to be for everyone. It is goofy, but it is quite a fun movie. It's fairly light-hearted. It reminds me of the Monster Squad style horror comedy. Like that sort of thing. I'm going to give this one a 6 out of 10. A bit of fun, although it is a little bit forgettable, I have to say. What are your thoughts on it? Leave me a comment. I look forward to you next time. Bye for now.